No one expected Max Verstappen's career to take such a sharp turn, but here we are. The whispers are getting louder, and now it seems like he's closer than ever to joining Mercedes. The exit of a key figure from Red Bull has left a huge question mark over their future, and many believe they no longer have the strength to remain at the top. The idea that Verstappen could actually leave Red Bull, a team that helped him become a four-time world champion, doesn't seem so far. Anymore, the recent results haven't helped either. Red Bull's dominance is clearly slipping. And let's not forget, Mercedes has been quietly preparing for a major move behind the scenes. Reports suggest that yes, the top boss at Mercedes, has given the green signal to go after Verstappen. Earlier, the board wasn't ready to make such a big shift, but now, with the internal situation at Red Bull shaking things up, the timing might be just right. There's growing speculation that Verstappen might have already made his decision, and even signed with Mercedes, with an announcement waiting for the right moment. Red Bull seems to sense this too. Their desperate efforts to hold on to him, even if it meant removing key people, are a clear sign of how critical the situation is. And while these decisions might look bold from the outside, they're also signs of panic. The last 5 races show a clear decline in Red Bull's performance. Even Haas, with Hülkenberg at the wheel, has managed to outscore Verstappen in that period, 31 points to 29. That says a lot. Meanwhile, at Mercedes, there's a wave of positive change. Team boss Toto Wolff seems to be holding back from confirming George Russell's contract for a reason, possibly because something much bigger is on the horizon. Even before Red Bull made its recent changes, Toto seemed to know there was a window of opportunity, and now, with that major hurdle gone, the path seems clearer than ever for Verstappen to switch camps, possibly by 2026 or 2027. One interesting move by Red Bull has been appointing a new team principal from within the Racing Bulls, set up someone known to have a strong connection with Yuki Tsunoda. This appointment might not be just about leadership. It could also be about preparing for a completely new phase, possibly involving drivers who've already worked under this new figure. If Red Bull is bracing for Verstappen's exit, it makes sense they'd want a team boss familiar with younger talent. People are already speculating whether Isak Hajar or Arvid Lindblad could be brought into the main team. It's a bold thought, but when a reset is needed, sometimes teams go all in. Let's take a moment to remember what Christian Horner had said not long before being shown the door. He talked about how sport works in cycles, and how Red Bull had already enjoyed 2 very successful phases in Formula One. He hoped to build a third, and yes, he wanted Verstappen to be part of it, but he also admitted that next year brings major challenges. Red Bull will be developing their own power unit, and no one's pretending that's going to be easy. While the team has top engineers and has invested heavily, there's still a big gap between theory and results on the track. In a more emotional moment, Horner even said that despite the pressure and changes, the aim was still to keep Max until the end of his current contract in 2028. But he hinted something important, that even if Max stays, it might not be with him leading the way. Just before his exit, Horner dismissed the growing rumors as nothing but noise created by George Russell, claiming Russell was unsure about his own future. But looking at the bigger picture, it's hard to ignore how all of this fits together. Red Bull is changing fast, and Max Verstappen's silence on key questions speaks volumes. After the race at Silverstone, Verstappen was asked a very direct question: would he still be driving for Red Bull in the near future? His reply wasn't what fans were hoping for. He made it clear that his goal is to keep winning, but when pressed about whether that would still be with Red Bull, he simply refused to answer. That one moment said more than any long explanation could. Inside the team, things seemed tense. The long-running divide between Verstappen and Helmut Marko on one side, and Christian Horner with his supporters on the other, seems to have reached a breaking point. With Horner out, it looks like Max and Marko may have won the internal battle. Think about this. Even Lewis Hamilton, who had bitter battles with Max not too long ago, is now openly suggesting that Verstappen should leave Red Bull. That's a big turnaround. These two once clashed at nearly every corner fighting for titles, and now, Lewis seems to think that Mercedes could be the best place for his former rival. Hamilton even went as far as saying that Max did exactly what was needed to win, and wouldn't have any problems fitting in. Years ago, Lewis had dismissed Red Bull as just an energy drink company, but now he praises Mercedes as a team full of passion, talented people, and an inspiring work culture. If Verstappen really does decide to move to Mercedes, that would send shockwaves through the paddock. Red Bull could end up having a completely new driver lineup, a new leader on the pit wall, and several other key figures already gone. When you put all of that together, it starts to look like Red Bull might be forced to rebuild from scratch. And that's not something any team wants to face in this competitive era. If Red Bull ends up losing both Verstappen and their long-standing technical leadership, the shift could be even more drastic than it already seems. Let's not forget, senior figures like Adrian Newey, Paul Monaghan, and Jonathan Wheatley have either left or are rumored to be on their way out. One by one, the core members of what made Red Bull a championship force are vanishing. With Horner no longer in charge, it's clear something much bigger is brewing inside the team. A reshuffle of this scale doesn't happen without reason, and usually, it signals that a team is preparing for a new beginning rather than just patching up old issues. Meanwhile, Mercedes are watching all of this unfold with sharp interest. The approval from Ola Klenius, Mercedes CEO, has given the green signal to pursue Verstappen. This wasn't the case before, but now the obstacles are slowly being cleared. And what about Verstappen himself? Reports suggest that talks between him and Mercedes have already taken place, quietly and away from the spotlight. These discussions haven't been confirmed, but the fact that they're being kept under wraps points to something bigger behind the scenes. Verstappen's camp remains focused. His manager has emphasized that Max is still under contract with Red Bull and that they've been loyal to the team for over a decade. But there's a hint of urgency in his words too. He stressed that they need performance improvements, and fast. Because right now, Max is no longer in a position to fight for titles. And that could change everything. If the current car can't deliver, then no amount of loyalty will be enough to keep a four-time world champion around. Max wants results, not promises. And Mercedes might be in a better position to provide that in the near future. Red Bull's biggest problem, right, now isn't just about one driver or a team principal. It's about losing the competitive edge, and that's a much harder fix. Their recent upgrades haven't worked as expected. The car lacks consistency, and the results are showing it. Other teams, including Mercedes, are slowly climbing back up, and Red Bull's dominance is no longer guaranteed. Even the much-talked-about power unit for the next generation of F1 regulations is causing concern. Without Horner pushing things in a specific direction, there's uncertainty. Changes in development approach, internal disagreements, and unclear targets could easily derail their future plans. On the other hand, Mercedes are showing signs of a strong comeback. Not only do they have a reliable setup for their future engine, but there's growing confidence inside the paddock that their 2026 project could be a game-changer. Teams running Mercedes power units already believe they'll be in the fight, not just for midfield scraps, but possibly for podiums. And then there's the driver situation. If Verstappen goes to Mercedes, who steps aside, Russell's position might not be as safe as it once seemed. Adding Max to the mix could lead to a reshuffle. Some believe Kimi Antonelli could still be in the picture, but racing alongside a world champion would bring pressure most young drivers haven't faced before. Red Bull, meanwhile, might roll the dice entirely. If they're rebuilding, they could go island, perhaps replacing Tanada and bringing up talent from their junior program. Lindblad, Hajar, or even another young name could be their future. So now the question that fans and pundits are asking isn't just will Max leave, it's also what happens if he does. Because if Verstappen joins Mercedes, Red Bull won't just be losing a driver, they'll be losing their identity as a dominant force. And rebuilding that won't be easy.